This is so cool. So, recent published findings from a approximately 4,000-year-old cuneiform tablet from ancient Sumer has been recently translated. I'm just going to give you a quick excerpt from livescience.com. A king will die. 4,000-year-old lunar eclipse omen tablets finally deciphered. The tablets added to the British Museum's collection many decades ago have finally been translated. The tablets describe how some lunar eclipses are omens of death, destruction, and pestilence. The 4 clay tablets represent the oldest examples of compendia of lunar eclipse omens yet discovered. Andrew George, an emeritus professor of Babylonian at the University of London, and Junko Taniguchi, an independent researcher, wrote a paper published recently in the Journal of Cuneiform Studies. Lunar eclipses occur when the moon falls into the Earth's shadow, as I'm sure you know. Major sell-off in the markets also. Do you got a 401 or IRA, or do you have money in stocks? You may want to jump on your computer real quick and take a look at what's going on. Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad Poor Dad, warns millions of 401ks and IRAs will be toast. I've been talking about this for years, and I'm going to give you a happy recommend again. Check out Noble Gold Investments. You'll thank me later. Give them a call, 1-877-646-5347. Let them know Rex from Leak Project sent you. Go to leakprojectgold.com. Check out noblegoldinvestments.com. If you've got a 401 or an IRA and you convert into precious metals and qualify, find out how, you will be gifted either a 10-ounce solid silver American U.S. flag bar, or if you want, you can get the limited edition Trump rounds, 10 of these, 10 ounces, 10 single ounce rounds. And this is limited edition solid silver. Don't let the money funders have all the fun. You know, money funders, the big banks, they're usurping tons of gold, literally. So real quick, just jump on over to leakprojectgold.com, get your free ebooks, and go to noblegoldinvestments.com, call 1-877-646-5347, find out how to get your free coins, find out how to qualify, and subscribe to their YouTube channel, Noble Gold Investments. Right on, let's jump back to the podcast right now. I'm sure you know. The authors of the tablets use the time of night, movement of shadows, and the date and duration of eclipses to predict omens. As an example, one omen says that if an eclipse becomes obscured from its center all at once and clear all at once, a king will die. Destruction of Elam. Elam was an area in Mesopotamia centered in what is now Iran. Another omen says that if an eclipse begins in the south and then clears, downfall of Subartu and Akkad, which were both regions of Mesopotamia at the time. Yet another omen reads, an eclipse in the evening watch, it signifies pestilence. Is it possible that ancient astrologers used past experiences to determine what omens lied ahead? It's possible. The origins of some of the omens may have actually lain in actual experience. Observation of potent followed by catastrophe, George told Live Science in an email. However, most omens were likely determined through a theoretical system that linked eclipse characteristics to various omens. The cuneiform tablets probably come from the city Sippar. That city flourished in what is now Iraq, George told Live Science. At the time the tablets were written, the Babylonian Empire flourished in parts of the region. The tablets became part of the British Museum's collection between 1892 and 1914, and they had not been fully translated and published until now. In Babylonia and other parts of Mesopotamia, there was a strong belief that celestial events could predict future events. People believed that these events in the heavens or in the sky were coded signs placed there by gods as warnings about future prospects of those on earth. George and Taniguchi wrote in the article, those who advised the king kept watch on the night sky and would match their observations with the academic corpus of celestial omen texts. Kings in ancient Mesopotamia didn't rely on those eclipse omens alone to predict what was coming. So basically, if there was an omen predicted from an eclipse, as an example, they would do other rituals and rites and what's the word I'm looking for here? They would use, well, inspecting the entrails of animals was one way previous shamans would look into the future. So pretty intense. Could you imagine that? You're like, well, okay, the eclipse shows that there could be a catastrophe. So let's check the entrails of this animal to make sure that it combines and it correlates. It's, that kind of reminds me of the 7 laws of the Kabbalah. And as above, so below. You will see the universe work through itself in smaller aspects of the whole, of the grand, like a microcosm to the macrocosm. However, there's a lot of room for debate when using animals' entrails to predict future events, especially when linking it to, also when linking it to an eclipse. If the animal entrails suggested that there was danger, people believed they could perform certain rituals that would offset the bad omens, annul the bad omens, thereby countering the forces of evil that lay behind it. George and Taniguchi wrote, so even if omens were bad, people still believed that the forecasted future could be avoided. Well, that's good. That's pretty cool. Let's be optimistic here. I find this very interesting because just yesterday, the day before yesterday, I shared with you Göbekli Tepe and the paper recently published. That incredible megalith shows several panels, these T-pillars, depicting this asteroid strike, this massive catastrophic event that took place about 12,000 years ago, the beginning of the Younger Dryas event, a 1,200-year long, approximately, give or take a few years, cooling period where the Earth was much colder than previous. And that caused a huge downfall with civilization, but also it was the rise of civilization as we know it. Many of the gods and deities and religions and cultures have spawned from that event. And these pillars do an incredible job depicting not only the comet strike, but also this ancient language showing how astronomers thousands of years ago, 10 plus that, 15,000 years ago, there's evidence of incredible zodiac signs portrayed as animals in caves in Indonesia and France. The ones in France are like at least 15,000 years old, probably much older than that. So there's been this very fluid study of the stars, and it's been very important to cultures for thousands of years. Now, that event that took place 12,000 years ago, that incredible comet strike depicted in Göbekli Tepe, we're uncovering this now. I wouldn't be surprised if there's information that points to when it could happen again. Now, I need to do some more research on this. Let's do some research on this while we're talking, actually. Did the WF really shut down Göbekli? UNESCO. Now, this is very interesting because if you go to UNESCO World Heritage Convention site, Göbekli Tepe, located in the Jermis Mountains of southeastern Anatolia, the property presents monumental round, oval, and rectangular megalithic structures erected by hunter-gatherers in the pre-pottery Neolithic age between 9600 and 8200 BCE. This is what is interesting to read, especially on the site. These monuments were probably used in connection with rituals, yes, but then it goes on to say most likely of a funerary nature. So like funerals? It doesn't seem like this location is more for observing the stars and the planets and the constellations, comet strike. Very interesting. Distinctive T-pillars are carved with images of wild animals, providing insight into the way of life and beliefs of people living in Upper Mesopotamia about 11,500 years ago. Yeah, well, these animals represent zodiac symbols. You know, I see data on UNESCO, but I don't really see anything about the WEF. Now, this is interesting. I just went to X from Jens Notruth. Have there been archaeological presentations at the WEF? There have, about Göbekli Tepe, indeed, related to large-scale national tourism infrastructure development. Then he goes on to say, but why has research been interrupted if there's no evil conspiracy? It's not the gotcha you might think, because it hasn't. Archaeology is more than excavating old things. It is studying and analyzing these things and their context to understand past societies and people. But excavations have stopped. Again, archaeology is much more than excavation. It's the genuinely archaeological method of collect sources and data. There's a time for that, and there's a time for processing and analyzing these sources and data. This time is now. I don't really see anything else about that. Yeah, I don't see anything that says that Göbekli Tepe is underneath the World Economic Forum. The only thing that I can find is it is a designated site, UNESCO World Heritage Site. And UNESCO, if you look at UNESCO under Wikipedia, the United Nations Educational, Scientific, and Cultural Organization. So that's not the WEF. It's a specialized agency of the United Nations. With the aim of promoting world peace and security through international cooperation in education, arts, sciences, and culture. Well, there you go, folks. See, it's just all about love and happiness and, you know, world peace and security. Oh, it is interesting. And I get it. Like, that's a pretty important site, and you're going to want to do your best to protect it and preserve it and be able to share that information with the world, especially with these new articles and scientific publications that are coming out where these archaeologists are connecting these symbols to a major cataclysm, and they're even showing these symbols and decoding in a form of language, which is extremely important, especially looking at how language changed after that time period. Now, there is data to suggest around 10,000 years ago with the Deciphering tablet. I think that's the way it's pronounced, the Deciphering tablet. Let me double check on that. Deciphering tablet. Yeah, the Deciphering tablet, a wooden tablet bearing inscribed markings, which this tablet discovered in 1993 in a Neolithic lakeshore settlement that occupied an artificial island near the modern village of Deciphering on Lake Castoria, which is Western Macedonia, Greece. They've dated this from 3000 BC, most recently 8000 BC, placing it right after the Younger Dryas event. And what's interesting about this tablet is how much this tablet reminds me, anyway, of runes, of like the ancient Vikings language. And I've seen similar symbols connected to petroglyphs and hieroglyphics and other characters from around the world. And these could be symbols referred to in certain biblical passages and scriptures about like these certain aurora borealis events that were seen in the heavens and then etched in stone or put into scripture. For example, the 5000 BC petroglyph in Siberia that shows what looks like a menorah. And then there's these very similar carvings underneath it and what looks like giant anthropomorphic figures, regular sized anthropomorphic figures. Let's see if I can find that real quick. That is really cool. 5000 BC, Siberian petroglyph. Boom. Look at this. This is at least 7,000 years old, folks. Siberia, Russia. So my question is, in Siberia, Russia, what are they doing with a menorah-headed squatter man figure with 3 people underneath them? And then look at the symbols to the left. That looks very similar to this Deciphering tablet and other ancient Nordic runes, Viking characters, And then you've got the earth, the 4 corners, the 4, like northeast, southwest, the 4 quadrants. The Hopi have this symbol on their flag. To the right of that, you'll see what looks like the tree of life, or what some people might refer to as Jacob's ladder. This is 7,000 years old. Now we're connecting it to the Deciphering tablet, and then go back even further to Göbekli Tepe. This is amazing. So now when we compare this to the most recent tablet discovered that's connecting these omens to eclipses, and the most recent eclipse that we had that made an X over the new Babylon, America, and the path of totality, how close it was to certain towns named Salem. Very interesting. Even Rapture, Illinois, right? Rapture, Illinois. It would appear that when these towns were named, the people that named these towns knew something about astronomy. So my question is, do you see there being a connection to what was referred to in these ancient tablets about eclipses and omens? Do you see there being a possible connection to today's times and today's figures and today's events? Now, the most recent eclipse that took place over America, in the biblical scriptures, it talks about 40 days after something would happen after that eclipse. And so I made a prediction that something would happen 40 days after. And I said, I don't know what it's going to be, but it's going to be a pretty big deal. And sure enough, it was right around the 39-41 day mark. It could have been 40 days based on the time zone. A very prominent figure. I just went through again also. I'm looking through these older tablets, and there are many tablets that describe these kings that ruled for thousands of years. It's not just the one in the British Museum that talks about the Sumerian king list. And then there's also another king list that goes 432,000 years worth of dating by Berosus. But there are many other king lists also that describe kings ruling for hundreds, sometimes thousands of years. And I'd like to share those with you in a future podcast. Another really cool thing about these cuneiform tablets is you can go through thousands of these tablets, and their receipts, their records, their information that's been etched in clay so that it can be solidified. And with so much accurate accounts of what took place in the past, if you just discredit some of these older tablets because they seem far-fetched or woo, it might be doing a disservice to ancient history as well as the present and the future. So be prepared, not scared. Have an open mind, not so open though that your brain falls out on the sidewalk, but your mind does have to work to be open, just like a parachute. It doesn't open, it doesn't work. Be excellent to each other, hit the bell, be well, and be the change you want to see.